I am indeed here. Thank you very much.
Jonathan. Right, okay. So I believe that this is now being broadcast. My name is Andrew Ledbetter and I'm one of the officers that advises and supports members of Cheshire Fire Authority. I've had confirmation that the meeting's been successfully broadcast on YouTube, and before the broadcast began I checked to make sure that all of the participants in the meeting were connected and able to take part. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the Fire Authority's remote meeting rules, which can be found on Cheshire Fire and Rescue Services website. With the help of colleagues, I intend to monitor the connections through the meeting. If there are problems with technology, and there often seems to be, we may need to adjourn the meeting and then sort of rejoin the meeting after a short adjournment. Participants able to take part using Skype may or may not use their cameras because it depends on their broadband connection. And we have got some people who have joined by phone. But we will do our best to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to take part in the meeting that needs to. I'll now hand over to Councillor Phil Harris, who is the Chair of the Performance and Overview Committee.
Hello, for those listening and watching our meeting, I'm Councillor Phil Harris. I'm Chair of the Performance and Overview Committee for 2020-2021. I'll now take us through the agenda. For the benefit of anyone listening and watching the meeting, I should mention a few pieces of housekeeping. Members of the committee are all different locations. Some officers are in one location. As you've heard, they intend to make sure that members stay connected to the meeting, and that continues to be broadcast. If a member is disconnected from the meeting, then the meeting may be paused for a short time to allow the connection to be re-established. However, the meeting can continue even if not all members are connected, provided certain rules aren't breached. Because I'm not in the same room as the officers, I will from time to time ask them to confirm things to me, such as which members have indicated they wish to speak on an item and whether everyone remains connected to the meeting. Members will use the chat function in Skype if they wish to speak, and will also use it for any votes that are necessary. I will introduce officers and members to speak usually, but not if I will. But not if I will expect them to use their name before speaking, so that people know who is saying what. Officers and members should also make it clear which page, paragraph, etc. they're concerned with if they're referring to a document. We will do our best to make the meeting as clear as possible. You will find it much easier to understand if you're referring to the agenda pack, which can be accessed on Cheshire Fire and Rescue Services website. So proceeding to the meeting is being recorded. Item 1B, apologies for absence. We did a roll call just before the meeting started. Can officers please confirm attendance at the meeting? Andrew Ledbetter to confirm attendees.
Yes, so we've got a full house. We've got councillors Phil Harris, Gina Lewis, James Nicholas, Jonathan Parry, Les Morgan, Norman Wright, Peter Wheeler and Razia Daniels. And we've got independent non-elected member Derek Barnett on the call as well.
And for info, we know that the Chief Fire Officer isn't attending this meeting on this occasion. Moving on to item 1C, declaration of members' interests. Can members please indicate whether they have any declarations of interest to make in respect of any items on the agenda? Have any members indicated that they wish to speak?
No, no one's indicated.
Good. Move to item 1D, minutes of performance and overview committee. We will consider the minutes. These can be found on pages 1 to 8 inclusive. Are you happy to accept them, members?
Agreed.
Agreed as well.
Agreed.
Right. Have to ask this. Have any members indicated they wish to speak? If you are on the phone, please speak up.
No, no one's indicated, Chair.
Great. Okay. I take it that these are confirmed as a correct record and my signature can be attended to them. Moving on to item 2, finance review quarter 2, 2020-2021. Pages 9 to 8 in the agenda. Wendy Bebbington to report.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, I am Wendy Bebbington and I'm Head of Finance for Cheshire Fire. This is the second quarter report explaining the financial position forecast at the end of September. There are several recommendations within this report, which I will go through as we go through the report. The key thing for me in terms of the report is paragraphs 4, 5 and 6, which talks about the impact the coronavirus pandemic has had on the organisation as well as the wider population. It is an unprecedented emergency, and as we mentioned in the first quarter review, it has had an impact on the finances of the authority. In terms of funding, we have been given just over £960,500 in government grant, and in paragraph 6 on the top of page 10, you will see so far we have incurred around £934,000. The remainder of the £960,000 grant has been committed, so we will have fully utilised the whole of the grant made available to us. As you can see, that has been spent on covering whole time and retained on-call support, some resilience firefighters brought in to cover any issue in relation to the impact that the virus may have had on capacity, and of course we've also had issues over cleaning and PPE equipment, which we have ensured have been available to all those that need it, as the safety of our staff has been a priority to us. So looking forward then on to page 11 and the summary table for the second quarter. As you will see that firefighting and rescue operations are forecasting an overspend, but I would also like to draw your attention to the grants and contribution line, second to bottom in the top part of the table, which shows an underspend of just over £1 million. This recognises the grant that we've just talked about, but obviously the bulk of the expenditure in relation to that is in the firefighting and rescue operation line. So bottom line, it shows a forecast underspend of £225,000. There are some proposals for what we could do with that underspend, and I'll come on to those in a moment. Again, just to highlight, as I did at first quarter, in paragraph 11.8 on page 13, we have received additional grant over and above that we estimated in relation to the pension grant, and we are hoping that in the spending review that is due later on today from the Chancellor, that we will get confirmation that that pension grant will continue into next year to cover the additional costs we as a authority incur because of the government's change to the discount rate. That's a complicated scenario, but what it means is the way in which they calculate how much that liability we have for pensions going forward is calculated, and therefore how much we as an authority have to pay in terms of contributions. So that's the grant that covers that particular area. So it was higher than we anticipated, hence the underspend showing on the or additional income showing on the grants and contribution line together with the COVID grant. So if I bring you to the bottom of page 13 and over on to the top of page 14, there are two proposed in-year bids for additional funding from that underspend. The first is in relation to thermal fleeces for the staff, and the second is in relation to an investor save scheme which brings in photovoltaic panels on various fire stations. These generate electricity, so we will be able to use the electricity for the fire stations themselves and potentially give some of the surplus electricity back into the grid. There are payback periods of approximately 10 years on the first tranche, and the Widnes Community Safety Centre slightly longer at 17 years. However, these do help us with our carbon neutral proposals and our environmental aspirations. Finally, in terms of the capital programme, we set out in paragraph 17 to 23 an update of where we are currently at, and the details are in the appendix. You will be aware that there are some issues to be addressed in terms of the modernisation programme and some of the fire station costs going forward, but a fuller and more detailed paper will be brought to the full authority in December, setting these out and the options available to us. That's all I really wanted to say in relation to this particular paper, but I'm happy to take any questions at all from members on the mid-year review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. I'll now take the input of all members and then have all questions or comments that may be made dealt with by the officers. Have any members indicated they wish to speak? Anyone on the phone should also speak up. Andrew?
No one's indicated that they wish to speak, Chair.
Can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
Sorry, so I couldn't. Wendy, you mentioned underspend, and you said that there were some proposals. Did you mention them? Did I miss it?
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. Yes, these are the proposals that are set out in the in-year bid section at the bottom of page 13. Additional thermal fleeces of solar photovoltaic panels, which will generate electricity for the fire stations.
Thank you.
Can I speak, Chairman, please? Norman here.
Yes, you can, Les. Is that Norman or Les?
Norman.
Norman, yes. Go on, Norman.
Yeah.
Norman, are you connected now?
Yeah, we're okay now. I could get.
Okay, well, don't
I've
forget
got
to
your
use the chat
I've got
function
all the
as well.
pictures, but I
Okay,
couldn't get any
thanks.
sound. It's just on the Crewe fire station, really, Chairman. Is any cost in cost if HS2 goes that way? How are we going to solve that problem? Is it paid by the government, or is it got to be paid by the fire service?
Thank you. Officers to respond.
Andrew, would you like to take this?
I'll do my best. I think the reality is that at the moment, no one is giving us a very clear indication of what HS2 will mean for us in Crewe. But we have been speaking with Cheshire East this week, and we think that they've got a bit more inside knowledge than certainly been made available to us. So I'm hopeful that within the next month or so we'll have clarity about what HS2 might mean. My current understanding is that the implications for our site are not on the surface, but they're beneath the site. So if there is any implication at all, it'll be to do with, I think, digging a tunnel underground rather than anything going over the ground. But obviously we need that confirming before we go anywhere with this. My understanding is that HS2 has been compensating people for a variety of pieces of land and properties along the route of the line. But the problem for the fire service is that it needs a fire station pretty much in that place. And if HS2 impacts at all on its ability to use the whole of the site, particularly at the access, which is difficult, then it will be a significant problem and potentially will put the proposal to rebuild or build a new fire station there in doubt. As soon as we've got the answer, we will obviously let members know.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, does anyone else wish to ask anything further? No? Okay. I believe we're able to note the forecast outturn position and approve the movements in reserves and in-year funding. I will pause for 10 seconds in case any member disagrees. Please indicate that you wish to speak, or if you're on the phone, please speak up and I will invite you to speak. Thank you, that's agreed. Let's move on to the next item. Move to item 3, Programme Report, Q2 2020-2021, pages 19 to 36. Andrew Ledbetter will present this item. Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So Mark Cashin is taking part in a meeting of the National Fire Chiefs Council. He's asked me to cover the report. I'll mention a few notable points in the Programme Health Report that's appended to the document at item 3. Firstly, page 21 lists the IRMP projects that have been added to our list of projects. And there's quite a few, as you'll recall, there's quite a few in the IRMP, because the IRMP covers 3 or 4 years. So that's the list of things that's going to be delivered, obviously over the period of that of the IRMP, and they will now appear in your Programme Health Report each time you see it. Now, members received an update on a number of estates projects last week at the planning session. So I don't really need to go over them, but I think it's worth just reiterating that we've made really good progress given the difficult circumstances that we've had. So the training centre is completed and has been handed over, and yeah, obviously we're on site at Sadler Road today, and it is very impressive and very significantly larger than I think any of us ever believed it would be, and we'll hope to show you the training centre as soon as we can, and we'll be arranging, I think I mentioned it the other day, some sort of fly-through video type arrangement so that we can at least let you see what it looks like virtually. Chester is moving towards completion in January, I believe February 2021. I'd like to say that it's going to be in January because that's what we were aiming for, but there are some COVID-related issues that are slowing things down. And as I mentioned the other day to you, the lockdown seems to have an impact, an initial impact, and hopefully things pick up afterwards. But we think we're going to nudge into February. It's around the end of January, start of February now, the expected completion date. We've already talked slightly about Crewe Fire Station. We've not put a status in there at the moment. We've agreed with the external project manager to settle a suitable delivery plan by the turn of the year. So there'll be a status on there next time. And some milestone dates will have been plugged into the Cheshire planning system. And I've already mentioned the need for us to clarify this issue with HS2. And I'm much more hopeful now that I'll have an answer to that reasonably quickly because of the help that I think Cheshire East are going to give to us. If you move on to, let me just check the page. The next amber one is page 27. We normally mention things that are amber, and I'll ask Alex Waller just to talk briefly about the operational training group review, which is on page 27.
Thank you, Andrew. I'll keep this brief. I know we keep saying this, and it does sound like a bit like a broken record, but the site is astonishingly good, and everybody's chuffed, made up that they're going to be using it. What's really important, though, is that the model of delivery is fit for purpose, and we make best use of that investment and best use of the site. So this work stream really is about solving that problem. Now, we've now got the keys, but we don't plan to start using the site proper probably until the 5th of April 21. And the reason I say that is because this is the start of the new training year. So we've still got to finish between now and then this year's training year, and all the trainers all over the county at different sites we set up to deliver the training. So we need to deliver this year's training year, finish that off, and spend a lot of time at the new site, familiarising with it, developing courses, developing the training scenarios, so we get we make best use of the facilities. So at the same time, between now and April, we're working on this pilot of a revised model of delivery, and that will bring together the incident command trainers and the operational training team into one team. And the reason for this is to try and make better use of the capacity and try and get the centre open 7 days a week and during the evenings, which is obviously really important for the on-call, but also for the whole-time firefighters as well. So there's little point really in having this fantastic facility if we don't get this part right. So it's really important, this. Now, we have had a few bumps in the road in terms of the negotiations so far, but this week, Steve Barnes has had some positive discussions with the rep bodies, with the Fire Brigade Union, and we think we've got a way forward which would see this pilot happening between now and the proper launch day, say in April, so we can agree a new model for delivery. So it's all looking on track at the minute, and we'll keep you posted. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Alex. So we've got a couple of other amber indicators. We've got the drones project, which is on page 28, and we've got the protection review on page 35. But actually, as it turns out, both of those are now progressing, as mentioned in the narrative. So I think both of those will pretty soon be turning green and be completed. I don't really have anything else to add, but obviously I will do my best to answer any questions the members have.
Okay, thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Alex. I've got Gina Lewis as indicated. Gina, do you want to ask a question first? Same pack drill as before. If you've got any questions, please indicate. And when the questions have gone through, the officers will respond as best they can.
Thank you, Chair. The question I've got to ask, I'm asking about is the training centre use. Obviously, you will be aware there is a large housing development which is adjacent to the training centre site. Although some work is going to be done in terms of protecting the housing that's nearest to the training centre with extra soundproofing and so on, can we ensure that there is some liaison between the developer and the training centre with regard to the use? I think I heard Alex say it's going to be 7 days a week and used in the evenings as well. And I'm not quite sure whether the developer was fully aware of exactly what was going to be happening on the training at the training centre. As a member of the planning committee, I did raise it as an issue. So there is a little bit of awareness, but obviously I have some concerns. This is part of my ward as a Cheshire West councillor, and I don't really want my phone ringing off the hook once the training centre starts. So we need to put in some work to ensure that people are aware of what's going on and what the implications of that will be for the houses that are going to be closest to it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Comments? No? Okay. Officers to respond to Gina.
Should I cover that question? I think it's a good question. I think that we were aware of the housing development sometime after we gained the planning permission. I was aware that there was some consideration of whether or not that site could be developed, but there was no firm proposal. I know that our planning permission, well, I'm pretty sure that the planning permission doesn't restrict our use of the site.
No.
And therefore, I guess the most that we could offer at this point is to try to be a good neighbour. I think it's a good idea that we do liaise with the developer, but quite frankly, you know, the site is there for us to use as best we can, and we will do our best not to annoy our neighbours. But at the moment, I'm not quite sure what we could offer on that front. Yeah.
Can I just come back on that, Chair?
Yes, hang on, Gina. Alex Waller wants to respond also as well.
Yeah,
it's okay.
I'll just add a bit more, maybe cover. I think having worked in the previous training centre and understanding the relationship we had with our neighbours and others further away, then we will, despite or regardless of what happens, be very mindful, and we are, in terms of when we do burns, for example, because that's the thing that the smoke could go towards the houses, for example. We're very conscious of trying to manage that as best we can and working with the neighbours. And we had a good relationship actually with the closer neighbours historically. So we'll be looking to start that again, as Andrew says, and be a good neighbour. But we will obviously have to use the site as required. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Andrew and Alex. I think basically that particular part of the development isn't due to be the first part. It'll be some time before that actually materialises. They're concentrating on a part of the site that's furthest away, I believe, for the first part of it. But it gives us time then to actually make sure that people understand what's going on at the training centre, why it's there, and why it's so valuable as an asset to the Cheshire Fire Authority. But it is important that people do understand. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Also, don't forget, I mean, obviously, as a member, you can have a meeting with officers, and if there's a need to issue some local communication, as long as it's within the rules for COVID, that's there as well, if that's any help. Yeah. Have we had any other questions?
No one else has indicated, Chair, no.
Okay, then. I believe we're able to note the report and move to the next item, but I'll pause for 10 seconds in case any member disagrees. Okay, move to item 4, the performance report, Q2 2020-2021, pages 37 to 86. Officer Alex Waller will present this item. Alex.
Thanks, Kirk. Good morning, members. I'm presenting this one on behalf of Lee Shears. The eagle-eyed of you have spotted Lee is on the call, but we weren't sure he would be due to his imminent arrival of his new baby, which hasn't come yet, I don't think, because he wouldn't be here. So hopefully Lee will stay with us for the duration and can answer any questions relevant to his department, and I'll crack on and take us through the paper. I'm conscious we're doing this remotely, so I'm going to try and stay on page 40, members. Page 40 in your packs. And this shows the dashboard for the service, and I'm going to pick up on the areas of underperformance, really. The first one is the deaths in primary fires. And as you can see, this indicator is red, but this is historical. This was red in Q1. We've already discussed the reasons behind that. And on a positive note, we've not had any deaths in Q2. So I don't intend to discuss that again as we've discussed it previously, but at the end, obviously, if members have any questions, happy to answer them. Next one is accidental dwelling fires. And this is showing that we are slightly above target. And I have to confess that I was very surprised by this, very surprised. We've all spent an extraordinary amount of time at home doing the cooking, a lot more cooking. I expected accidental dwelling fires would be much higher. And in fact, as you can see, just below the orange indicator, the fire start in the kitchen is actually less when compared with last year. So that's really good. And we have, as you know, members, continued with our prevention work and our messages, and we focus on the things that we think or are a problem as they emerge. And one of those is kitchen fires in the home. And you will be aware that we've used the station open days, the virtual station open days. There's been 23 of those across 23 stations, and they focus, one of the messages, the key messages, is this home safety advice. And they've had views of around 153,000 people across the social media platforms, and most of those are in Cheshire. So we're still trying to keep that message going, keep educating where we can, and respond. So we are slightly over target, but I'm quite confident. Hopefully, we'll either get back under the bar or stay somewhere around where we are now. Now, moving on to the third item. So this is bottom left of your table. Orange says outputs. There's a list then of things like safe and well visits, thematic inspections. So these ones are exactly what it says on the tin, really. The outputs, the things we do to then try and change the outcomes, like visit people in the home, safe and well. And the ones on there I want to pick up on are the blue and the red. And these all relate to our regulatory work with non-domestic or business premises. So we've basically been hampered, obviously, by the pandemic and by the lockdown, with business closing, and then it's difficult, even when businesses are opening, to visit the sites physically. But we have been doing that when we've needed to. So this is the indicators, the outputs clearly haven't been achieved. But you can see, if you look above in the outcomes section, the blue section, second from the bottom is fires in non-domestic premises, which these outputs are trying to deal with. And you can see that they are well below target with 66 against the target of 87. In addition to that, we've also recently been inspected by HMI, and one of the key lines of inquiry was whether we are fulfilling our statutory duty with regards to regulation of businesses and non-domestic premises. And whilst we're yet to receive the final outcome and the letter, all the indications so far are very positive. So hopefully, members, these things combined with the outcomes and the recent inspection provide you with some assurance that we are trying our best to keep businesses safe. So moving across now to the right-hand side of the list, outside of the table, and we have working days lost due to injury, which shows 56. Now, this was another indicator which was effectively read before we started, because this was due to 2 injuries sustained, which the sickness carried over into this year. So he's counted in this year, but the actual events happened in the previous year. So we were never going to pull this one back. It was a carryover from the previous year. And you'll be pleased to know, members, that in Q2, we've had 0 days lost due to injury, which is, when you think of the job that firefighters do, it is quite remarkable that we don't get more. And that's because it's testament to the Health and Safety Committee and the work that's done with the rep bodies. We all work together to keep firefighters safe, and we do a really good job of it most of the time. But obviously, every now and again, we do get some accidents. So finally, moving to the middle, which is on-call availability, which is showing amber, 78% against the target of 85. And I'll ask Neil Griffiths just to give us a few comments and an overview of where we're at with the on-call availability. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Alex. Good morning, members. Members will recall that in Q1, we reported that the on-call availability target had been achieved, and that was the first time for a long time. It's no coincidence that that period correlated with the first national lockdown period. And many of our on-call staff at that time were working from home or had been furloughed indeed from their primary employment. So as lockdown restrictions were lifted over the second quarter, we did experience a downturn as we anticipated. But as the table indicates on page 85, the direction of travel across all of our on-call stations still shows an improving picture in comparison to the previous year. And our availability in Q2 is actually 6% higher than in comparison to Q2 last year. Recruitment is a priority, and it's a constant challenge, and the table on page 71 provides members with a snapshot of the numbers currently in our recruitment processes for some of our on-call stations. I think the final thing I'd like to add and say to members, really for assurance, is Cheshire is very much at the centre of the national discussion about the on-call duty system. And this can only support the work of our on-call programme, which is summarised on page 30 as we move forward. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Neil. If we leave the questions, I'll just finish this last one, Chair, and then we'll come to questions if that's okay.
Yes.
So finally, members, I did say I'd keep you to page 40, but could you turn to page 82? And you should have a infographic on that page which shows the work we've been doing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this, members, I mentioned before about the outputs and how we've been hampered with doing our usual home safety visits and other work. And this really captures where we're up to in terms of the safe and well visits. And you can see that the numbers are a lot less than usual. But if you just turn a couple of pages on to page 84, you will see that those people have been working really hard with partners and local authority to do other stuff and to manage other risks to do with COVID. And you can see here from everything from thousands of prescription deliveries to shielding visits, bulk deliveries of PPE and operation swab tests. And that really is testament to the people who've worked really hard in the last many months, and we're repeatedly getting letters and messages from partners and other people who are really appreciative of what we've done. And it's not stopping anytime soon. Just recently, we're now in discussions about the vaccine and about how we can potentially support delivery of the vaccine. And that, again, is just testament to our reputation and our and the assistance we've given partners in the community at this time. So I just wanted to finish on that to say that whilst we haven't been able to deliver all of our usual stuff, we've done lots of other stuff to help during this difficult period. Thanks, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Alex. I believe the appendices actually, if the infographics, if they're going online again on the social media, that might be helpful at some point in time appropriately. I'll now move on to the officers, the members for questions. I think I've got one indicated at the moment. Any others, Andrew?
No, just Councillor Nicholas.
Okay, Councillor Nicholas.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question is concerns page 68 and 69, which is the 10-minute standard. For the first time, I can see, and it springs out to me, but there are 4 references to there were failures of distance from the station. Now, although I have seen that before, I personally don't remember seeing it so many times. I'm just wondering, first of all, is this normal? Is it just me? And if it's not, is this something we should be concerned about in the future?
Okay, hang on, James. I've just got to take Peter Wheeler as well, because we'll get the officers to address each question. Peter?
Oh, yeah, thanks, Phil. It's just, I think this is probably the appropriate point to put on record, I think, our thanks to all the staff, particularly here in Cheshire West. We've had lots of support with food deliveries and prescriptions, and I think they really have gone above and beyond, and we ought to minute our thanks to all the staff for their help.
Indeed, yeah. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, officers to respond.
I'll take this one first, Chair, Alex, and then I don't know if we need to, Neil might add some, with it being his department. I think it's an interesting thing, this, about too far from the station, because fire engines in the daytime especially aren't usually in the station. They're usually moving about. So depending on where they are and where the incident happens, obviously that affects the travel time. Now, they've been spending a lot more time in the station lately because of lockdown and such like, so I would suspect it's probably got something to do with that. I'm concerned about it. I'm obviously always concerned if we're a bit slower getting to incidents, but the volume and the extent to which we're delayed is not really raising any concerns with myself, because it's quite minor, but it's an interesting observation. I don't know if Neil Griffiths has got any more he wants to add.
The only thing I would add to that, and I share your thoughts on it, is that we scrutinise every single failure, so members can be assured that we thoroughly look at every single failure and try to understand, and we don't accept that just because it's a failure we haven't looked at it and we haven't found out the reasons why to satisfy ourselves that everything we could have done to get there on time we have done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, can you also take it from all members that the sentiments expressed by Peter are shared by everyone. I assume they are.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Duly recorded, Andrew?
Certainly, yeah.
Okay. I don't think there's any other further questions or comments. And I believe we're able to note the report and move to the next item, but I'll pause for 10 seconds again. I've got Razor Daniels. Razor?
Thank you, Chairman. I also just wanted to add my thanks to all the hard work everybody is doing. It's just amazing. So can you pass on all our thanks as well? Thank you.
Fine. Okay, thank you. That's agreed. So we need to move on to the next item now. Move on to item 5, Her Majesty's Inspectorate Cheshire Fire and Rescue Service Action Plan Health Report, pages 87 to 106 inclusive. Susan Watkins will present this item, I believe. Susan?
Yes, morning Chair, morning members. So for the record, I'm Susan, as you say, and I'm a Business Support Manager in Organisational Performance, and I'm presenting this paper today on behalf of Lee Shears. So in your pack on page 87, you have the paper regarding the action plan that was developed in response to our HMIC FRS inspection report. And this is the update on progress following the previous report given to you in July of this year. The action plan includes identified measures of success for each of the 9 areas for improvement. And the report, as you can see, is done in a health report style to maintain consistency with other reports. The health report starts on page 91 and greyed out boxes indicate where actions are considered complete. And members will see that there's a progress report for each action. At the end of Q4 in 2020, there were 21 open actions remaining, and the vast majority of actions are now complete, with only 12 ongoing. Completion of all actions is expected by the end of March 2021. Due to the amount of detail within the plan, it wasn't my intention to take members through the action page by page. However, it is worth noting that good progress has been made in many areas, and I will just highlight some of those developments for you now. So firstly, further work has been undertaken to develop the recommendations for the Protection Department, and the project initiation document for the risk-based inspection programme review has now been signed off by SMT. The review of the attendance management policy is also now complete, and guidance for managers and staff has also been developed. And in addition, a series of HR roadshows are running throughout the autumn period in conjunction with our mental health advisor. Communications around wellbeing has also become more prevalent, and regular articles and guidance is now placed on the intranet and in the monthly alert magazine. And we also continue to promote the importance of physical and mental health and wellbeing through our staff groups and within our COVID-19 guidance documents. On Friday, the 9th of October, the service marked World Mental Health Day with a series of virtual events, which staff were invited to join. And quarterly themed podcasts and campaigns have also been scheduled to coincide with national events and complement a range of wellbeing themes. During the pandemic, senior management visibility has been maintained via a programme of Skype visits and regular principal officer briefings, thanking staff for their contribution. And all staff have been afforded 2 days extra annual leave during 2020 in acknowledgement of their hard work. In addition, more personal retirement presentations have also been incorporated into business as usual. During the pandemic, the service has facilitated working from home arrangements as well for many staff where practical. Therefore, all aspects of our agile working arrangements and the use of technology have been tested thoroughly. An interim guidance document has been produced to provide information to staff who are currently working from home on a temporary basis. And this outlines the approach that the service has adopted to ensure that staff are able to continue to work from home safely and with all the necessary equipment and support. Finally, the service has set up a forum for staff to ask questions, raise queries or provide suggestions relating to COVID-19. And the topics so far have included things like suggestions about crewing arrangements, how to reduce the spread of the virus, supporting our staff, and increasing our help for the vulnerable. All these suggestions are considered by the management team and then responded to. But work is also ongoing to develop a new staff suggestion scheme with the help of our Staff Engagement Forum. That was as much detail as I was planning to go into today. However, it is worth noting that the action plan will continue to be monitored by the service management team on a quarterly basis, and members will receive a further update in Q4. That brings my update to an end, unless anyone has any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Nice to see all those greens on the chart. I'll now take input from any members. Are there any questions or comments?
No one indicated at this point.
Okay, that's good. Okay, if there's no questions or comments, thank the officer for the report again, obviously. I'll just ask once more, does anyone wish to ask anything? No? Okay. I believe we're able to note the report and move to the next item, but I'll pause for 10 seconds again. Okay. Okay, thank you. That's agreed. Let's move to the next item. Move to item 6, Internal Audit Progress Report, Q2, 2020-2021, and follow-up report, pages 107 to 128. Anne-Marie Harrop from MIAA will present this item. Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie, we're not hearing you at the moment. As far as we can tell, you're on the call, but your microphone is muted.
Somebody muted me centrally, and I was trying to unmute myself, but it had muted me centrally. Sorry. It wasn't working. Good morning, members. I'll start again. I'll just give you a brief update. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'll just give you a brief update of the work that's progressed since we last met. So if you could turn to the bottom of page 113 of your packs. So since we last met, we've completed our work on the payroll systems, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a while. And just to tell you a brief update on work that's in progress, our pensions report is at draft stage and is out awaiting management comment. We have undertaken the financial systems work last week, and again, actually, we've issued a draft report this week on that. I'm due to undertake the risk management work in December, and our work on collaboration and partnerships, which will focus on blue light, is a planning stage. And lastly, after Christmas, we'll be undertaking some work around estates management. So that's a brief summary of where we're.
Excuse me, Chair. The volume is very, very poor.
Yeah, I thought Andrew was going to respond to that. Alex, you've got your mic isn't muted, by the way.
So I didn't interrupt, Chair, because other people had said they could hear Anne-Marie at the start.
Sorry.
So Anne-Marie, just do your best to speak up as loud as you can, because there's nothing else that we can do.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just talk you through the key findings from the payroll report, if that's okay, which is at the bottom of page 114 of your packs. So this has received a substantial level of assurance, and we've only raised 2 medium risk recommendations. Overall, we were happy with the policy procedures. We've looked at roles and responsibilities, and we've undertaken some audit testing on starters, leavers, bank changes and contractual changes, and we are happy that the controls in place were satisfied and have allocated a substantial level of assurance. Can everybody hear me?
It is better.
Yes.
Is it? Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Okay, so 2 medium risk recommendations. One is around an overarching policy needs to be updated and developed, and the second recommendation is around payroll checklists that are in use within the team, and just to make sure that they accurately reflect and procedures that are operational on the ground. So nothing major, and good status of internal control in the payroll system. If you then turn to page 120 of your packs, that just tells you where we're up to in terms of progress on the plan. In spite of everything, in spite of a late start in delivery and all of the impact of COVID-19, we're actually doing pretty well in terms of delivery, and we're on track for a full delivery of the plan by the end of March. So I'm happy to take any further questions. I'm sorry about the phone.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Anyway, don't worry, everyone ends up on the phone sooner or later. I know what that's like. Trying to talk, it's like talking to the radio. Any questions from members being in?
No one's indicated, Chair, no.
Okay. In that case, we can make some progress. I believe we're able to note the report and move to the next item, but I'll pause for 10 seconds in case any member disagrees. Okay, thank you, that's agreed. Let's move on to the next item. Move to item 7, Annual Health, Safety and Wellbeing Report 2019-20, pages 129 to 142 inclusive. Neil Wilson will present this item. Neil.
Good morning, Chair, members. My apologies, first of all. The copy of the report that I have has no page numbers on, so I will be referring to the numbered sections where necessary. Can I just remind you that the Fire Authority is the duty holder for health and safety, and so this report should give members some assurance as to how we are managing their responsibilities. Section 1 is a summary, and it notes some key things. First of all, we had a small increase in the number of minor accidents reported in the reporting year. There was, however, a small decrease in the number of incidents that we had to report to the Health and Safety Executive. There was a decrease in the number of duty days lost as a result of accidents, and you will have heard Alex's comment earlier about that and the current state of play. There's a decrease in the number of accidents involving service vehicles, and a small decrease in the number of reports of attacks and abuse directed at staff. We did spend more of our time focusing on the risks that firefighters face related to cancer, and that's quite timely, as the University of Central Lancashire has just published a research report on that, and we'll be looking at that in detail. There's been a review of the risk assessments and the associated procedures that we have, focusing on COVID and the additional hazards and risks that come out of that. The final quarter of the year saw the COVID-19 pandemic start to take effect across the country, and the service took immediate action to identify measures that would reduce the risks to our staff, to their families, and yet allow us to continue to meet our statutory obligations to the communities of Cheshire, and indeed to go beyond that and to offer support in a practical way. But all of that was done with very careful consideration of the risks to our staff and the opportunities we could take to reduce that. Moving on to section 3, key achievements. The service has continued to deliver its Managing Safely courses, not just for our own staff, but for Cheshire Police and for some local businesses, with 100% success rate in the exams. Unfortunately, that has had to go on hold once COVID came on the scene, as it was considered too risky to continue to hold meetings like that. The service has introduced a subgroup of the Health and Safety Committee to consult on the decontamination of firefighters and operational kit. And initially that was focusing on decontamination after fire incidents. But that has proved to spin out into helping protect our staff from COVID-19 and to the provision of suitable protective clothing and procedures for decontamination of both the kit and the fire appliances following incidents. The service has employed a mental health and wellbeing advisor to help improve the management of mental health in the service, and that has proved very successful. And finally, in paragraph 3, reporting of injuries, diseases and dangerous occurrences, we reported 5 during the year. 4 of these were as a result of injuries, and these fall into a category known as over 7-day injuries, where an individual is off for more than 7 consecutive days following an injury. None of them were as a result of significant injuries. And then we also reported 1 dangerous occurrence relating to breathing apparatus. It's hard sometimes to see how that performance relates when we're looking at it just as a service. But the Health and Safety Executive reportable accident rates based on the number per 100,000 employees. And section 4 allows you to have a look at how we're performing on that phase. I've listed the data from 2016-17, and you can see that our reportable accident rate is round about 450 and has been quite consistently. But that reportable accident rate allows us to compare our accident rate with other fire and rescue services and indeed with other businesses nationally. So the average reportable accident rate for fire and rescue services in the Northwest is 767. Nationally, fire and rescue services, the reportable accident rate number is 1,230. So we're performing considerably better than the national fire and rescue service figures show. And the national reportable rate for all employees in that year was 230. Now that, on the face of it, looks quite poor when we consider ourselves. We're twice that figure. However, Health and Safety Executive do recognise that they have considerable underreporting and that their figure is artificially low. The Labour Force Survey is generally seen as more accurate, and they put the national rate at 430. Section 5 reports on minor accidents. There was a slight increase in these in the reporting year. We went from 43 up to 51. And then figure 1 shows you how that compares to previous years from 2005. Section 6 shows our response to accident data. We do analyse all the accident reports that come in. We look at the cause, We try to identify what we can do to prevent a reoccurrence of them. And figure 2, it's a little bit fiddly and perhaps needs to be a little bit shorter for future years. But the analysis of the services accident reports for 2019-20 shows that most of the accidents resulted from slips, trips and falls, with manual handling being the next most common cause. And that picture mirrors the picture nationally in the fire and rescue services and indeed across all industries in the country. Section 7 reports violence and aggression towards staff, and this is both physical violence and verbal abuse. And you can see that we're performing well on that. There was a slight decrease on the numbers on the previous year. But again, if you want to compare our performance against the other fire and rescue services in the Northwest, the average number of attacks across the Northwest was 47. Alex has already mentioned duty days lost as a result of injury to accidents. And the table in section 8 shows how that's progressed downwards from 2013-14, where we were losing 1 man year to accidents every year. And we have now got that down quite considerably. Vehicle accidents, section 9, again shows an improvement. We've been working hard in the service. Again, we look at all of the vehicle accidents that happen to see if there's anything we can identify where we can prevent accidents happening in the future. We do have a small subgroup of the Health and Safety Committee that meets regularly to look at what improvements we can introduce. And there has been a sustained and successful campaign to reduce the number of incidents where service vehicles have been driven in excess of the speed limit. And indeed, when I looked at the last figures for this, we had none that had been consistently driven over the speed limit, which is a big improvement on where we started from. Of the 52 vehicle accidents that were reported in the year, 8 of those occurred when fire engines were responding to emergency incidents under blue lights. Section 10, claims and complaints. We have a kind of background of very low level claims, insurance claims against the service. And I think we're currently dealing with 3, which is quite good in my experience. And I think, again, reflects on how well we manage health and safety in the service. Moving on to section 12 and figure 6. This shows the results of fitness testing during 2019-20 compared with previous years. We aim to test every operational firefighter annually to ensure that they meet the minimum standard of fitness, and those who fall below that, the fitness advisor will take through a program, an improvement program, with the aim of getting them back on the run as quickly as possible. And indeed, I think the investment that the Fire Authority has made in fitness equipment and gyms over preceding years is starting to pay off. It's very difficult to see, but we are reporting perhaps just 2 people a year who fail the fitness test so badly that they have to be taken off the run. which is very good performance indeed. So I won't go through the rest of the report in detail, but I think in conclusion, you can see that the service has continued to manage health and safety with some degree of success, and that the fire authority's responsibilities in that direction are being looked after on your behalf. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Thank you for another very good report. I'll move to questions now. I've got Gina Lewis down on vehicle accidents on page 138 first. Is there anybody else indicated?
No one has indicated at this point. Okay,
Gina?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Basically, I live in a very narrow road. It can take 2 cars going backwards and forwards, but at a weekend and certainly in the evenings, this is the situation where you've got so many parked cars. We've got planning legislation which is in consultation at the moment. Has the fire authority made any comment on the planning consultation? Obviously, as far as Cheshire West is concerned, we've made our comments, but I'm finding that with the number of new developments, certainly in my own ward, none of the roads is any wider than the road that I live on. But we've now got a decrease in the amount of parking space. The Woodford Grange estate, which is being built just down the road from me, has no garages. They have parking places and a maximum of 2. So therefore, more and more cars are going to end up on the road. Now, if this particular sort of trend continues, where developers are using the land to increase the density and not providing wide enough access roads, it is going to have a greater impact. I just want to know whether the fire authority has made any sort of input into the consultation on the planning legislation that's going through at the moment.
Officers to respond.
Can I just add a comment to that, please, Chair? I think the point made by Councillor Lewis is very important. Most of our minor accidents do happen on small side roads like that, where there is very little space for the fire appliance to manoeuvre. And I think the worrying thing from my point of view is that there is a lot of discussion at the moment in government about banning parking on pavements altogether. It's already happened in parts of London. And if that means that vehicles are not going to be able to park with wheels on the pavement, it's going to exacerbate the problem.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for that. Before the officers respond, I would make the observation, obviously, that normally if it's between meetings and the setting, it's normally the chair of the authority would be consulted on any consultation responses that we're normally making, and it may lay in that area. Certainly, it's a common area across the country. Of course, the problem we've got at the moment is the government is busy. Well, part of the government is busy ripping up the parts of the planning framework and other planning processes. So it's not going to be helped. It's more likely to be the otherwise. That's not very political comments. It's just a fact of what's going on at the moment. Is there an observation by officers?
Chair, I'm not entirely sure where that sits, to be frank. So can we have a conversation with Councillor Lewis offline, and we'll come back to all of you just to let you know where we sit with that.
Yes, I think that as well. Okay. Are you satisfied with that, Gina?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I believe we're able to note the report and move to the next item, but I'll pause for 10 seconds. Okay, that's agreed. Let's move on to the next item. Move to item 8, Annual Road Safety Report 2019-20, pages 143 to 152 inclusive. Steve McCormack will present this item. Steve?
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. My name is Steve McCormick from the Prevention Department, and I'll be presenting the Annual Road Safety Report for 2019-2020. So as the Chair's already alluded to, on page 143 of the report, you will notice within the background section of this document, the Fire and Rescue Service is a strategic partner to support our local authority colleagues to meet their fulfilment of their statutory duties under the Road Traffic Act of 1988. If we move forward onto page 144 under the financial implications section, you'll notice that Cheshire Fire and Rescue Service have been commissioned on behalf of Cheshire East Council to provide road education to local schools, both at primary level and also at high school level. And this is a contract in place over a 6-year period to the value of £432,000. The money that we receive for this contract is then utilised to staff 2 positions within the Prevention Department, and these staff members will support the delivery of this activity. Now, this will be really key for members to bear this in mind as we move through the report, because it has had an impact because of COVID and the impact of COVID on the team and our delivery at the latter end of the 2019-20 reporting year. You'll notice throughout the report a wide variety of activities that we've been involved in terms of road safety throughout the reporting year, right the way through the seasons of the year, the key moments of when road safety activity tends to spike within the county. In most cases, we were able to achieve all of our targeted work in these areas. And you'll notice from some of the activities that we undertook, we have been recognised at a national level. So if I draw our members' attention to page 146 of the report under the Tyre Safe Winter Driving Events. Again, the service was successful at receiving the Emergency Services Award with a tyre safety intervention work that actually this year involved our own cohort of apprentice firefighters who developed and delivered an educational intervention programme around tyre safety. As we move forward through the report, you'll see in certain areas we actually exceeded the target. Again, this was prior to COVID. The departmental road safety plan has certain requirements on our operational colleagues from service delivery. And again, you'll see from a lot of those events that they were involved in, we were actually able to exceed our statutory requirements, our departmental requirements in the delivery of those activities. If I can bring members onto page 149 of the report, this is the commissioned road safety activity for Cheshire East. And as I alluded to slightly earlier under section 7 of the financial implications, the work we do on behalf of Cheshire East involves Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 4 delivery to just over 150 primary and secondary schools within the Cheshire East area. The contract that we have in place stipulates that we need to hit a success rate of 90% of completion across those schools to provide road safety education to those pupils. Now, unlike the financial reporting year, a lot of our delivery year within the Cheshire East schools is directly linked to the school term time. And a historic agreement that we have had in place with Cheshire East is because of the term beginning in September, our lead up to the bonfire period and the subsequent Christmas period afterwards, the vast majority of our road safety education in schools actually takes place between January and the following August and the summer holiday period. So that obviously this year fell directly into the COVID period when we ourselves had to adapt our way of working, and a lot of the schools obviously were locked down or had a very small number of pupils within the school. Now, the direct impact that this had on us was that then we couldn't go back to Cheshire East and seek the payment of £36,000, which covers that 6-month period. And that, has, as I said earlier, has a direct impact on our salary and staffing levels within the department. We therefore took the proactive decision to not fill 2 vacant road safety officer positions within the team so that we didn't meet a budgetary shortfall because of the money that we weren't entitled to from the council. Now that we're through this year's bonfire period, early into next year, the discussions have already started with Cheshire East schools regarding the use of online platforms. So a little bit like the meeting today, doing online sessions with those school children to ensure that we can meet our obligations under that contract. And we have this week just finalised the job description and the job role for 2 new posts within the department. Our previous model utilised a watch manager, an operational watch manager, and a road safety officer. The new model we've proposed as a trial for 12 months will utilise 2 operational crew managers. And that was based on a number of factors, including feedback that we'd received, that the impact on the students seemed to be more beneficial if it was an operational member of staff being able to recount experiences of dealing with operational incidents themselves. So that work is currently ongoing as we speak, with a view that we will commence in earnest our delivery back to Cheshire East schools in early 2021, but initially that will be via an online platform. Moving further on through the report, you'll see a lot of work again through the fire bike and the Biker Down, which again proves incredibly popular. We were slightly under target again because of the lockdown measures that sort of impacted on us in early 2020. But as was alluded to before by Alex Waller, there was a huge amount of support then provided from our Biker Down volunteers and our fire bike riders, who then supported the community response by assisting organisations such as the Blood Bike Service to deliver blood, breast milk and tissue samples across some of the medical establishments across the Northwest. Finally, within the report on page 152, you'll see from the National Road Safety Group, NFCC Northwest Group, that our Road Safety Officer, Andy Gray, is now the Vice Chair of that group. And obviously, Cheshire is seen as very, very proactive in terms of their road safety activities. And you'll see at the bottom of that sort of insert, at the bottom of page 152, our Fatal 5 initiative that was broadened from the Fatal 4 has now been viewed as good practice across the Northwest region, and Lancashire themselves recently have now taken up the Fatal 5 message that ties in line with the message that Cheshire Fire, Cheshire Police and Northwest Ambulance are now promoting. And what that means and what that looks like to us, some latest figures that we've recently received from the Cheshire Road Safety Group shows that the 5-year overview of collisions where someone is killed or seriously injured have reduced by 38% across Cheshire between 2015 and 2019, and there has continued to be a reduction in the early part of 2020. What we can see from that period across the time is in 2015, there were 440 collisions that involved a fatality or a serious injury. In 2019, this had been reduced to 273. Now, comparing where we are today with at this time last year, there's been a 9% reduction in the number of killed and seriously injured collisions on Cheshire's roads, down from 228 at the end of October 2019 to 207 at the end of October 2020. Now, this was to be expected because of the lockdown measures, and perhaps disappointingly, the figures aren't slightly lower than what they actually are. And what this has been put down to, members, there's been a dramatic increase in the number of cyclists and pedestrians that have sadly been killed or seriously injured in the early part of the 2020 calendar year. So there's a huge amount of work for us to do and to pick up within the prevention department around educating cyclists and also pedestrians. So it clearly highlights the importance of the work and the work that we are involved with Cheshire East and the other local authority areas. That concludes my input today. So if the chair doesn't mind, if there's any questions that people would like to put forward, I'm happy to answer those.
Hi, it's Norman here.
Thank you for your report, Stephen. Can I make an observation also that obviously this year is different to other years, so I think members totally understand where we are with all aspects of performance across the service. Have we had any members indicate questions?
Can I
No,
speak,
Chair.
Chair? Can I speak, Chairman, if Norman here? Yeah,
Yes, you can, Norman.
thank you. Just can you give me an update on the law on tyres? Is a tyres allowed to go over 10 years or old or whatever? I've heard all sorts of rumours.
Stephen?
Yeah, I'll try to answer that as best as I can, Councillor Wright, without knowing the full legislation on this one. There's a huge amount of campaign work that's been undertaken. Sadly, the work I've seen on this was a lady who'd lost her son as a result of a tyre failure on a public coach, and there was a huge amount of lobbying and work done on this legislation, and it was all based on the premise that the tyre was deemed legally acceptable if it met the relevant tread depth requirements. Now, in certain cases, that was still legally permissible because it had met the tread depth requirements, but the tyre itself was over 10 years old. So again, and it may have been a coach that had been, excuse the expression, but mothballed or infrequently used, that the tread itself was still legally met the standard, but the tyre itself may have degraded or started to deplete it in quality over that 10-year lifespan. So I know there's been a huge amount of work, and as I'm led to understand, there was something coming through Parliament very, very recently that would put a requirement on owners of HGVs, LGVs, public sort of transport vehicles that would require them to change the tyres, not just based on the tread depth, but also the lifespan of the tyre as well.
Thank you very much. So it's not going to include our normal cars, just the public vehicles?
Yes, that's my understanding, Councillor Wright. Yeah, so it's actually the large goods and public transport vehicles at that piece of legislation. But I will confirm that. I will look into that and confirm that for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No. Okay, I believe we're able to note the report and move to the next item, but I'll pause for 10 seconds again. Okay, thank you. That's agreed. Let's move on to the next item. Move on to item 9. This is a verbal report. Interim bonfire report. Steve McCormack will provide information about the bonfire period, summarising the actions taken by the service. A written report will be presented at the next meeting of this committee. Stephen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. So this is the interim bonfire report as a precursor to the full report, as the Chair has just alluded to. So again, as you are more than aware, this year's events with COVID restrictions meant we were in quite unprecedented times with our bonfire initiative work, our restrictions that were in place to allow us to do some of that proactive safety messaging amongst local schools and community groups. So we were really, I suppose, a little bit unpredictable in terms of what we were expecting or anticipating through the bonfire period. We actually probably anticipated a slightly busier period than what, fortunately, we experienced. For the first year this year, we actually started to promote safety messages that would allow people to have bonfires within their own gardens or on their own land, but to do that in the safest way possible. Previously, we've been huge advocates of promoting people to attend organised displays where more robust safety measures would have been put into place. So this year, we've really promoted the concept of safe bonfires and safe displays within people's properties, and hopefully this, as you'll see, this has had a real positive impact over the bonfire period. What we were also faced with, we also had during the normal reporting period of the 24th of October to the 7th of November, that calendar period actually covered 2.5 weekends. So the 24th of October, which is the national reporting period for bonfire activity, was a Saturday. And the final day of that bonfire reporting period on the 7th of November was also a Saturday, which have historically given us busier periods when obviously children and young people are not in school or in places of education. So with the two combined, I suppose we had the perfect storm sort of measures that could have impacted on us. So we did a huge amount of proactive work on social media. We had officers involved in local radio interviews and local TV interviews with Granada TV to promote the concept of bonfire safety across the Cheshire region. I'll give you some figures in a moment, if I may, regarding our reach in terms of social media, but I suppose the standout headlines for us across the bonfire reporting period, the dates I mentioned previously, we had 41 deliberate secondary fires. And if we look at that from previous years, it's a 90% reduction from 5 years ago and a 38% reduction from last year during that same period. So again, a huge beneficial impact from the work that we did do in terms of the number of fire incidents that we actually attended. The social media campaign that we undertook, we took the view this year that because of the impact of COVID, the lack of face-to-face education, some of those safety messages that we had to deliver needed to be slightly more hard-hitting in terms of their message that they were putting across. So the digital media team and our arson reduction, deliberate fire reduction manager, Andy Gray, put together a quite hard-hitting and emotional video called Matt's Story that members may have seen on some of our social media platforms. Again, the feedback that we've received through digital media was that this had a huge reach across the Cheshire region and was our most popular social media campaign in terms of the number of people it reached, the number of people that reshared that, and also the number of people who left a comment or an opinion on the impact of that process. Throughout the period, we also provided a huge amount of other information regarding how to report nuisance fires, how to report the build-up of debris through local authority partners. And the figures that we've recently received is that the reach from our social media campaigns was just under 600,000 people through those various campaigns and messages that we put across. And the videos that we circulated had a viewing figures of just under 100,000 people. So just under 1 in 6 people who we could reach viewed one of our information videos or one of our information messages that we circulated. So again, what we'll take from this is we'll do some more sort of forensic digging, I suppose, in terms of the actual impact of what was most impactful to the population. And then we will tie this into further campaigns going forward to ensure that we are still having the relevant impact as needed. That concludes the interim report, Chair. So again, if it pleases the Chair, I'll take any questions.
It often does. Okay, thank you, Steve. I'll take the input of any members now. Any questions being indicated or comments?
No questions at this point.
Bit of an echo there, right? Okay, if there's no other questions, then I believe, or comments, I believe we're able to note the report and move to the next item.
Councillor Harris, we
Okay,
can't hear you at the
that's
moment.
agreed. Let's move on to the next item, which is the forward work programme. Please turn to page 153, item 10. And I'll ask Andrew Ledbetter to confirm whether there's anything to add to the plan. Andrew?
I don't think there is from the discussions that we've had today. You've got a reasonably full agenda for your meeting in February already.
Excellent. Can members please indicate if you wish to speak? If you're on the phone, please speak up and I'll invite you to speak. No. Okay. Right. I'll give it 10 seconds again. Okay. Thank you. That actually concludes the agenda for today. Thank you for your attendance and for turning up, and hope to see you all at the next meeting at the Fire Authority on the 9th of December. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, got them all.
Stay
Thank
online
you.
for
And you,
Andrew.
Jonathan.
Very
Yeah.
much.
Thanks.